very excited to be joined today by Jesse Zarate, who is the Chief Procurement and Supply Chain Officer at Allwhere. How are you doing today, Jesse?
How you doing, Andy? Very happy to be back here again.
Absolutely. You know, I was excited to have you back on the show with me. And today we're actually going to be talking about keys to orchestrating a great remote work program. So people are going to want to stay tuned for that. I saw the news about you joining Allware recently, and I wanted to talk through that with you. Just to kick things off, I want to give a special thank you to our sponsor, True Diligence. If you'd like to save time and money on your background checks, along with getting 29 years of expertise in the area, please be sure to click on the link below. So just to give our audience a little background about you, Jesse, what inspired you to go into this field?
Remote work has been with me almost since I started my career. I am always the type of guy that we get things done, whatever you are. And last episode, we talked a little bit about my experience where I had to travel internationally for periods of time. And although I was responsible for other regions of the world and how the operations would go in the other regions, I had to rely with some practices of remote work. Back then, I remember we used to use Messenger or Skype to get connected. But then there was always limitations as far as connectivity and infrastructure in the companies to have a fully blown remote setting. So we always had to do a lot of traveling just to make sure that we have a presence in every country. But again, sometimes we will fly for 10 hours to have a 1 hour meeting, which seem unproductive nowadays, and probably is. So I think remote work has its perks, it has its advantages if it's implemented correctly.
Absolutely. You know, you and I have had fun talking back and forth. I've worked in 9 countries. You've worked a lot internationally. The travel part can be a challenge. Lots of unforeseen errors or delays or whatever. But I think this remote work is just growing rapidly. And it makes sense. You know, it saves time, it saves money for everybody involved. So I was excited to have you come on and talk with me today. So what would you say are some key trends that you're seeing in remote work within the recent years?
Yeah, listen, it's no secret, right? Remote work has been at least in some case, shape or form for the last few years. But then after reasons of force majeure, I think we were all exposed to being connected remotely for longer periods of time and find ways to make it happen that way. So I think those trends are going to be here to stay, at least at some level. So companies have had to learn to really establish a remote work program for their employees. And I think that kind of like made them to accept a little more that this is going to happen somehow, or at least a percentage of people. So they're starting to think, okay, how do we do this in a better way? And of course, there's a lot of limitations and issues within infrastructure, but I think nowadays we are much more closer to a point that we can have a very successful remote program than we were 10 years ago.
Right. Absolutely. I think people adapted very quickly, and it's grown dramatically. So what would you say are 2 or 3 key challenges facing companies today?
Listen, let's start with the first one, right? Hiring remote it's a big challenge.
Right.
Hiring and onboarding new employees, especially when they're not coming to the office to introduce themselves, to get all their equipment and all that. It's a tall order for HR people and probably for IT guys too, right? That they have to pretty much handle all the logistics. They have to make sure the employees are connected the first day of work, and they have all their tools and anything they need. So that's one aspect that is really challenging for companies, and they're starting to see what solutions are in the market and how they can deploy that. Of course, that is nationwide and of course internationally. The challenges are beyond borders nowadays. With remote work, I don't think boundaries are just countries. You can have employees across other continents as well.
Absolutely.
That's one. The second one is asset management, right? You'll have employees, spread out across a region, and then you have company assets also spread out across the region. Somebody has to manage that. And although before in previous years, IT had a consolidated location where they have all the tools and everything to do the asset management, make sure that they keep track of the laptops or all the other equipment that employees have. Now it takes a lot more effort because there's a lot of logistics involved. There's a lot of tracking tools that need to be in place, and quite often we see companies that they don't have an office anymore. So IT professionals are relying on their own home to do this type of work, which is not set up for. So I think that's the other challenge that I think we are addressing and trying to help companies with. And last, and probably the most important, is the company's shift, a cultural shift. They need to start thinking about how you operate, and you operate slightly different on a remote setting than you do in a on-site setting. By enhanced communication, different type of schedules, performance management, engagement programs for employees, and also a lot of one-on-one communication, and perhaps on and off travel, which is still fine, right, when you do it sporadically. But that has to happen. I think the human touch needs to be there. Being remote, it is a big change for a person that's used to be socializing in the office on a daily basis.
Right. Absolutely. I think the tools are so important. And I actually had a situation where I had a laptop deployed to me. It did not have the capabilities I needed to do the job. And it ended up being a swap out situation where I got an upgraded laptop. I just couldn't do my work. I would sit and it would just spin and spin and so forth. So I've been through that. And, providing tools, the effective tools, is so important in getting things done. I mean, absolutely. So in terms of success, what are 2 or 3 keys that you can share with our audience?
Right. So I think, and this is the reason why I'm so excited about this topic is at allwhere we are actually addressing the first 2 points that I mentioned before. It's really onboarding of employees and asset management. Those are the 2 that I think we're bringing a solution, a one-stop solution for companies that need help on those aspects. We help the companies to procure their products, get those products directly delivered to their employees whenever they need it. We offer the controls and administration that the company requires, so they really are in charge of making sure that the employee gets whatever they need, but we actually coordinate. We are the ones that make things happen for them. So they have to make the decisions, and after that, we take over and ensure that all their employees have those tools the day that they need it. And on the same token, right, when they have to do changes of employment or there's people leaving, we help them to retrieve those products. We store the products for them. We make sure those products are ready for a new redeployment if that is the case, or if they need to dispose and sell the asset, we can help them out as well. But we have that in a centralized control platform. So the HR person or the IT person that is responsible for managing this has full access and has full transparency of where their assets are, what companies they have, or sorry, what computers they have available, and how can they redeploy them and where.
Right. Absolutely. All of those are extremely important.
So, and from the
um,
supply chain perspective, I think one thing is important here, and it is we are mixing a B2B, B2C type of experience. So we deal with the company using B2B terms and controls and structures. So the company has that security of trading with a company like allwhere. But we also have the end of user B2C experience when it comes to the employee. So we ensure that they get their things on time, that we coordinate with them where they want to deliver. We help them to either send something back if they need to. So we have almost like a B2C experience for the employee. So we have to kind of work making sure that we get the best of both transaction models.
Right. Absolutely. I've been through a kind of a challenging B2C experience, and it sounds like you guys have a system to make it easier on the end user and on the company to manage all of that. So,
Exactly. The company has a storefront and they manage the store, and we help them, of course, to add any products they want. They can manage their budget. They can control what products they want in there, any swag, any gifts. So it's a platform that the company uses to manage all the onboarding and the assets that they have.
that's awesome. I love it. It's so needed and so helpful. So, so what are the best ways, Jesse, for people to connect with you?
Well, with me, LinkedIn is the platform of choice. I'm always connected. I have a big network of connections, and I'm always happy to hear from people through the platform.
Awesome. And I always ask this of my guests. What would you say as a final word of advice for our friends out there listening or watching today?
I mean, one thing that is important for me, and I'll give this advice, is take advantage of all the technology there is in place, but don't forget that human touch, the human to human interaction. So although we have text, we have chats, it's always refreshing to have a video call, to meet somebody in person, to have a coffee, or even to have a phone call. Sometimes one phone call fixes 1,000 emails. So I think I'll encourage people to do that more. And believe me, I am pro remote work, but it's also necessary to have a human to human interaction very often. That's one. And the second one is keep learning and networking, meeting people. I think, like I said before, it's this world has so much more information that we can actually make sense of. So I think it's not an issue of information, it's an issue of us wanting to learn and get things better.
Great advice on both of those points. Yes, I think the human interaction is extremely important. It sometimes just doesn't come across right in a text or an email. The tone, it's difficult. So I think the human interaction is extremely important. And I also believe always learning, always be learning. You can never know everything, but I've been challenged with new things throughout my career and I had to learn. And now I know how to do more things because of that. So it's always been really helpful for me. So, Jesse, thanks again for coming back on the show with me. I really appreciate the advice.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me back. I really enjoyed talking to you, Andy, and I'm looking forward to be again soon.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it, everybody, for our show today. Thank you for listening or watching. Take care, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.